Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me at tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. The new direct service email from you to me and my crew to answer your specific purchase questions about this or any watch you see here on Watchbox Reviews. And today we're discussing the new for 2019 Bremont H-4 Hercules in stainless steel, a 300-piece limited edition dedicated to the one-of-one Howard Hughes H-4 Hercules flying boat. Now that first took wing and last took wing on November 2nd, 1947, proving the point that Hughes had designed a functional aircraft in good faith. Designed originally to deal with the lack of war-critical materials such as aluminum, the primarily birch H-4 was known derisively by its critics as the spruce goose. We'll get into that in a moment. Let's talk about the size of this watch. Bremont has pretty much made 43mm its default case size, and that's what we have here. A 43mm in diameter, the watch measures 14.7mm thick, which is actually less than I expected. And then lug to lug, it measures 51mm with a proportional 22mm spacing between the lugs. Now the strap is said to be vintage leather. Whether it's vintage effect or truly vintage, I can't say, but it certainly plays the part, as it looks like something an aviator might have worn in the 1940s. Thick cut calfskin, you can see the layers of construction and profile, and a contrasting binding stitch. It's a handsome and substantial accessory. Now you can see there's a Bremont pin buckle, and you'll appreciate that it's both satin finished and polished with a lovely bevel on its flank. There's an elevated bridge, which means the bridge sits over the pins rather than between them, allowing the strap to sit inside the buckle when it's strapped down on the wrist, keeping it flatter. I like that attention to detail. Now the timepiece features the triptych case construction that Breitling often discusses in their literature, and well, it does mean something substantial. It fits better, as they separate the form of the case, which holds the dial and the movement, from the form of the lugs, which are allowed to assume a more ergonomic curvature. So though this watch is a 43, I can recommend it for a wrist as small as 14 centimeters circumference. You can also see that it visually separates the bezel and the lugs from the mid-case. The steel itself is hardened on its face by a carbon diffusion process, so it's a more scratch-resistant case. And then the mid-case, for both tonal contrast and additional scratch resistance, is DLC coated with little lateral striations to add a bit more definition. You can see that the case is contrasted finished with polish around the outer lip of the bevels of the lugs and satin finish almost everywhere else. The strap is drilled relatively close. The lugs are drilled relatively close to the case, and a curved spring bar allows that to be done without impeding the motion of the strap. Now when we turn around to the crown, and it is a screw-down crown, you can see the Bremont propeller logo, as the brothers Nick and Giles English, who founded and still own the brand, are aviators and engineers first and foremost. Now you can see there's a thin knurled crown that is a screw down. The watch is 300 meters, or I should say 100 meters, 300 feet water resistant. I know, they're not exact equivalents, I'm approximating. So I suspect that's a surprisingly stiff 100 meters due to the screw-down crown. You can also appreciate that the dial has a nice dished profile with the 24-hour scale acting as a Reho outboard, and then there's that 24-hour hand featuring a lovely red and white arrow index with a golden shaft, and that indicates the 24-hour phase of the second time zone. Of course, you can set the local and the reference time zone separately. Note that the watch includes both a quick set and a rapid adjustment for the second time zone. A lot of watches that are GMTs force you to adjust the local hour to adjust the date. I like the fact here that just like an ETA 2893 or 2836, you can quick set the date and you can quickly adjust the independent 24-hour hand. Now the watch does not feature hacking seconds, and that's because the basic Bremont BWC2 movement does not feature a hacking architecture, but you can see that the dial is no expense spared, with applique numerals featuring a slight fade luminova designed to evoke a little bit of tritium patina. There's a sunken sub-register for seconds with a counterweighted varnished seconds hand, the name of the H-4 Hercules aircraft, and then a small railroad track seconds register. You'll also appreciate that there is a railroad track with seconds hashes and Arabic numerals every 5 minutes for the scale inboard of the Reho. You can also see the day-night color differentiation of the top and bottom of the 24-hour scale. Now, the watch is built in London, so it is constructed in London as well as its movement. So with both movement and case as well as final assembly done in London, it isn't really eligible for a COSC chronometer certification. Nevertheless, the watch is adjusted to meet the ISO 3159 standard, which is the testing standard applied to the Swiss COSC chronometer test. It's basically the same thing, and this watch meets that standard. Now, we talked about spruce goose. Well, the nickname is on the rotor, but what actually comprises the rotor is birch. This is birch taken from the aircraft itself, which is on display at an aviation museum in Oregon, and during the restoration process, a certain amount of original birch was removed, and that is featured on the rotor itself. The bridges are NAC, nickel anthracite coating, and then the movement, BWC02, is basically a ETA 6497 built by Bremont and designed by La Joux to incorporate an automatic winding mechanism and the GMT 12-hour, 24-hour dual time system. The movement is 25 joules, and as you can see, beats away at an unusual for a movement of this size, 28,800 vibrations per hour. The standard 6497 is 18,000, so we are talking about a train wheel basis as a template, not a literal copy. You'll also note a unique swan's neck style click that also acts as a click spring. The click is both the retainer for the ratchet wheel and its own spring. An unusual arrangement. You can see blued screws, Côte de Genève across the bridge's engine turning on the base plate as well as underneath the click spring, and you'll appreciate that there are several different finishes including satin and media blasting on the rotor itself. It's nicely executed. So again, 50-hour power reserve, automatic winding, 4 Hz beat rate, dual time, quick set, 1224 dual time, 25 joules, 100 meters water resistant, and adjusted to meet the ISO 3159. Now, though not featured on the watch, the boxed set with this watch does feature the ISO 3159 certificate and a small swatch of aileron material from the H-4 Hercules, so a small piece of doped fabric originally used on the control surface of the original aircraft that is also included with the watch. You can see this timepiece, though large, easily wears on my 16 centimeter circumference wrist. Really no issues there due to the shape of the case and the shape of the lugs. I can recommend it for a wrist, again, as small as about 14 centimeters circumference, and it sits fairly low for what it is. See it and make it yours on the Watchbox.